Hello, my name is Maya Ellison and I am an aspiring occupational therapist. Today I'll be talking about how emotional literacy forms the foundation for emotional regulation in children. This topic is really meaningful to me, not just on a professional level, but on a personal one as well. Throughout this presentation, I'll be sharing some of my own experiences and reflections to show how early emotional understanding shapes how we learn to cope, connect, and express ourselves as we grow. This photo represents how I see myself in many ways. Even though I am an adult now, I feel like emotionally I'm still the 7-year-old version of me in the picture. At 21, I'm really just now learning how to regulate my emotions in a healthy way. And that's important because the foundation for emotional regulation is built in childhood, through the way that emotions are named, handled, and responded to by the adults around us. Research even shows that many adults today still struggle with emotional regulation. For example, a cross cultural study of over 9,000 adults found that about 9.2 fall into the pattern of emotional dysregulation. So, if fully grown adults can still find emotional regulation difficult, imagine how overwhelming it is for a child who is just beginning to understand their feelings, their identity, and the world around them. So, throughout this presentation, we're going to explore what emotional literacy is, why it matters, and how parents, teachers, and occupational therapists can support children in developing these emotional skills early on. I want to start with a quote that really captures the foundation of what we're talking about today. Every human feels a variety of emotions. Every human expresses emotions. No one has to be taught how to feel. Even babies experience happiness, sadness, frustration, and fear. But understanding what those emotions are and learning how to make sense of them is something that has to be taught. Emotional literacy is the ability to recognize, name, and identify our emotions. As children grow, they develop more specific emotional language. For example, instead of just saying, I'm mad, they learn to say, I'm frustrated, or I'm disappointed, or I'm overwhelmed. But that only happens when adults model and label emotions out loud. Children learn emotional literacy by hearing things like, you're upset because your tower fell, or it looks like you're disappointed that it didn't go how you hoped. Emotional literacy is the first step in emotional regulation because we cannot regulate emotions we don't understand or have the words for. Because emotional literacy is a learned skill, emotional regulation is also a learned skill. Emotional regulation refers to the ability to manage and respond to emotions in a healthy and appropriate way. It doesn't mean that we stop ourselves from feeling something, because emotions are always real and valid. Instead, emotional regulation means that feelings are acknowledged, processed, and then expressed in a way that meets our needs without causing harm to ourselves or to others. So, emotional regulations is not shutting emotions down, it's about learning how to move through emotions effectively. And just like emotional literacy, children learn emotional regulation through the models around them, through consistent, calm, responsive adults who help them understand what they feel and what to do with it. Emotional literacy leads to awareness, and awareness is what makes regulation possible. Think about a toddler. They feel emotions intensely, but they don't yet have the words to explain what's happening inside. So instead of saying, I'm overwhelmed, they might hit, bite, cry, or shut down. They aren't trying to be bad. They simply don't have another way to express what they're experiencing. When a child doesn't know what they're feeling, the only thing they can do is react. But when a child learns emotional words like disappointed, frustrated, or hurt, they gain the ability to pause and reflect before reacting. This pause is emotional regulation, and emotional literacy is what makes that pause possible. In my own life, I spent years feeling what I would call unidentified sadness. Growing up, I didn't feel like any emotion other than happiness was acceptable. So I learned to ignore what I was feeling, and when emotions are ignored, they don't disappear, they build. For me, it eventually would come out all at once, like an explosion, because I didn't know how to name what I was feeling or work through it. Learning to name my emotions have changed how I respond to them, and children deserve to gain that skill much earlier than I did. When a child doesn't develop emotional literacy, they don't just lack vocabulary, they lack regulation. A lot of times, adults will look at a child and say things like, they're being bad, they're acting out, or they're just trying to get attention. But the truth is, there are no bad children. There are only dysregulated children with needs that don't yet have the skills to express, or unmet needs. When a child doesn't have the words for what they're feeling, their emotion can feel overwhelming or even scary. And if those big feelings go ignored or punished again and again, the body can shift into kind of a high alert mode. This is a state where the child is focused on surviving the feeling and not understanding it. And in that moment, the brain isn't prioritizing reasoning or self control. So the child isn't choosing to hit, scream, or shut down. They are overwhelmed by an emotion that they haven't been taught to process. So instead of asking, what's wrong with this child? We need to ask, what does this child need right now that they don't have the skills to communicate? A long-term impact of not developing emotional literacy is poor emotional competence. Emotional competence is basically our ability to understand what we're feeling, cope with those feelings, and relate to others with empathy. When children don't receive support in identifying and processing their emotions, they can start to struggle, not just at home, but socially and academically too. There's research that really highlights this. A large meta analysis looking at over 24,000 children found that a child's ability to regulate emotions is directly shaped by the emotional environment around them. So when children grow up in environments where emotions are dismissed, punished, or ignored, they're less likely to learn how to manage those emotions in a healthy way. And over time, this increases the risk for things like anxiety, social difficulties, struggles in friendships, and struggles in relationships. There are three parts to every emotional experience. The first being the feeling, so feeling the emotion, the second being expressing the emotion, and the third being regulating the emotion. When we are able to do all three, that's what we call emotional competence. Children naturally feel emotions, and that part is automatic, which we spoke about before. But the parts that need to be taught are how to understand what they're feeling, how to express it in words, and how to regulate it in a healthy way. And children cannot learn these skills alone. They learn them through co regulation, which is when an adult provides calm, presence, consistently, and emotional modeling. Children don't learn to regulate by being told to calm down. They learn to regulate by being with someone who is regulated. Children need emotional vocabulary so they can name what they feel, safe and consistent relationships where the feelings are allowed, predictable routines and boundaries that help them feel secure, and opportunities to practice coping and not just be corrected. Because without emotional vocabulary, a child can't explain what they feel. And without emotional safety, the brain goes into that protection mode that we just talked about and not reflection mode to think about what to do before acting. The first step is monitoring feelings. Just being able to notice, I'm feeling something right now. Some children don't even realize that they're upset until the emotion is already overwhelming them. Next is being able to tell the feelings apart. Anger, frustration, sadness, fear. They all show up differently, but to a child, they can all feel the same. Learning the difference is a skill. Then children begin to experience the feeling clearly and understanding what the emotion actually is. Once a child can feel and recognize the emotion, the next step is learning to label it. And this is where emotional vocabulary matters. If a child doesn't have the word frustrated, then every uncomfortable feeling might just come out as mad. They also need to believe that they can handle the feeling, that the emotion is not bigger than who they are. This is where supportive adults help to create a sense of, you can do this and I'm here with you. And finally, children need strategies, real concrete things that they can do when emotions feel big, like taking a breath, asking for help, stepping away, or finding a calming tool. Bronfenbrenner's ecological theory reminds us that children grow within multiple relationship systems, not just one environment. The microsystem is the closest layer to the child. The environments children interact with every day. This includes their family at home, their teachers and peers in the classroom, and any supportive professionals like therapists. So first, we have the family microsystem where parents are a child's first emotional teachers. This is where emotional meaning begins, where children learn if feelings are safe, welcome, or something to hide. Then we have the school microsystem, where teachers become the primary emotional models throughout the day. This is where children practice expressing feelings in a community, sharing, waiting, problem solving, and navigating conflict. When we connect these microsystems, we create what Bronfenbrenner called the mesosystem, the relationships between home, school, and therapy settings. When those relationships are strong and consistent, children receive the same message about emotions everywhere they go. And when emotional regulation begins to impact daily routines or learning, the therapy microsystem, including occupational therapists, steps in to help bridge the gap through sensory support, emotional coaching, and coping strategies. So, emotional development is not something that just happens in one place. It is co created across family life, school life, and therapeutic support. And because of that, emotional skills must be modeled consistently across each environment. Parents are a child's first emotional teachers. The way a parent responds to a child's feeling becomes the child's earliest understanding of whether emotions are safe, acceptable, or something to hide. Children don't learn emotional regulation by being told to stop crying or calm down. They learn regulation through co regulation, meaning that they learn by experiencing someone staying regulated with them. Regulation is taught through presence, not control. And something really important here is that children learn emotions by watching our faces. We don't have to be perfectly calm all the time. That's not realistic and it's not the goal. What matters is our facial expressions matches our feeling in a grounded way. So if you're upset, it's okay to look upset. You don't have to pretend everything's fine. But there's a difference between being authentically expressing emotion and losing control of it. When your expression and your tone match your emotion in an appropriate way, you're teaching the child emotions are real, emotions are safe, and emotions can be expressed without hurting anyone. Parents support emotional literacy by naming the emotions in the moment, staying calm enough to be a steady presence, modeling how to handle frustration, validating the feeling, even while guiding behavior. And now, I also want to note that parenting is a really hard thing. Unlike teachers who only spend a section of their day with the children, you're with your children every single day, juggling the stress, responsibility, and exhaustion that comes with it. So sometimes reactions come from emotion and not intention, and that's what it means to be human. I like to give the example of this though. If we were to spill something, like let's say we had a glass of milk and we spilt it, we might just say like, "Oh shoot," and just clean it up. But when a child spills something, our reaction can shift to frustration or even scolding, even though it's a mistake, just like when we did it. That reaction shapes a message to the child, and tells them either mistakes are normal and manageable or mistakes are embarrassing and dangerous. When a parent takes a breath and names a feeling like, "Oh, you're disappointed because you spilt something. It's okay, let's clean it up," then the child learns to make feeling that their feelings make sense and that they're safe whenever they feel those feelings and that they can work through those feelings. Teachers play a major role in emotional development because children spend so much of their day in the classroom. The teacher's job is not to eliminate emotions or stop children from feeling. The role of a teacher is to accept the feeling and then help the child learn in an appropriate way to express it. This is where scaffolding comes in. Scaffolding means breaking down emotional experiences into manageable steps and supporting the child right where they are, instead of expecting them to already know what to do. So when a child is overwhelmed, a teacher might say, "It's okay to feel angry. I'm here with you. Let's try to handle your emotions positively." This communicates that the emotion is valid, the child is safe, and there are choices in how to respond. Teachers can support emotional literacy by naming the emotions when they appear in the classroom, modeling calm responses to frustration, helping children problem solve in the moment, building emotional vocabulary into everyday routines, and just like at home, emotional safety comes before self control. So, teachers create emotionally safe environments by providing predictable routines, clear boundaries, and spaces like a quiet corner or a calming area where children can pause and re regulate instead of being punished for needing time. When teachers consistently respond to emotions with acceptance and guidance, children learn that my feelings can make sense and I can understand them. and I can choose what to do with them. As occupational therapists, we understand that behavior is communication. A child's behavior is not random. It's the child showing us what skills they do not yet have the words or regulation strategies to express. When a child is overwhelmed, shuts down, hits, cries, or acts out, they are communicating to us, I don't have the tools to handle what I'm feeling. So our role is not to stop the behavior. Our role is to build the skills underneath it. We support emotional regulation by teaching coping and sensory strategies such as deep breathing or grounding tools, movement breaks to release stored energy, sensory calming strategies like pressure inputs or fidgets, and giving the child language to express what their body and emotions are trying to say. We don't stop with the child though. We coach the parents and teachers so the child experiences the same support across all the environments the child is in. Consistency is what allows new regulation patterns to actually stick. We also support the child's identity and confidence because when children begin to understand and manage their emotions, they don't just behave better. They begin to believe, I can handle what I feel, my emotions make sense, and I am safe in my own body. Now, you can notice that I'm repeating myself a lot, but this shows that there is collaboration between all three of these fields. Children need consistency to thrive. Emotional regulation is learned through repeated experiences, not just once at home or once at school, but across all of the systems that surround the child. Bronfenbrenner reminds us that development happens in layers of relationships. When caregivers, teachers, and therapists are all on the same page, the child gets a clear and steady message about what emotions mean and how to navigate them. When everyone uses the same emotion words, the same calming strategies, and the similar expectations, the child's world becomes predictable, and predictability creates emotional safety. When the environment is emotionally safe, the child has a capacity to learn emotional literacy and to practice regulation because their nervous system is not in survival mode. So, consistency is not just helpful, but it makes the condition that makes emotional growth possible. No one learns emotional regulation in isolation. It grows in connection through repeated supportive experiences over time. One tool that has really helped me personally is the emotion wheel. Sometimes what we think we're feeling on the surface isn't actually the core emotion. For example, I might react in anger, but when I slow down and reflect, the real feeling underneath might actually be sadness or disappointment or fear. The emotion wheel helps us break feelings down into more specific language, and that's important because children cannot regulate what they cannot name. If a child only knows the word mad, then every uncomfortable feeling, like frustration, embarrassment, or confusion, might come out as yelling or shutting down. When we expand a child's emotional vocabulary, we give them more ways to understand themselves and more choices in how to respond. A simple tool that we can use is the sentence frame, I feel blank because blank. This helps the child to connect the feeling to the experience, which is the first step in emotional awareness. And for some kids, and honestly, many adults, just learning that it's okay to talk about feelings at all can be life changing. Children learn emotional skills through connection, and one of the most powerful forms of connection is play. There is research showing that parental playfulness is linked to stronger emotional regulation in children. When adults join a child in play, the child's nervous system relaxes, their stress decreases, and their emotional openness increases. Play is not just fun, play is a regulation practice. Play supports emotional development by lowering anxiety and stress in the nervous system, strengthening the bond between the child and the adult, creating a safe space for emotional exploration, and allowing children to practice problem solving without pressure. There's a phrase often used in child development: connect before you correct. Children are far more able to listen, learn, and regulate themselves when they feel connected to the adult with them. A child is not going to take emotional guidance from someone they don't feel safe with, or someone that they feel unseen by, or somebody that they feel disconnected from. So instead of responding to dysregulation with correction right away, we start with connection, with joining the child, acknowledging what they're feeling, and being present with them. Children don't just learn how to treat others from us, they learn how to treat themselves. They watch how we react to mistakes, frustration, and failure. If we respond to ourselves with harshness, blame, or self blame, children learn to internalize that same voice. One moment that stands out to me one time is when I was playing Legos with a child. He knocked down the tower and immediately said, "You ruined it. It's all your fault." And I paused and I said, "It's okay. We can try again. Mistakes happen." A few minutes later, the tower fell again, and this time he said, "It's okay. We can try again." That wasn't me correcting him. That was him learning from what I modeled to him. So, this shows that a child cannot calm down just by being told to calm down. They learn to regulate by experiencing someone staying regulated with them. And children don't learn regulation from instructions, they learn it from relationship. Our calm becomes their calm, and our compassion becomes their inner voice.
Oh, did that bump your head?
Yes.
Are you okay?
Yes.
Did that get your head? Oh no.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, I'm so sorry.
No. What happened, buddy? You hit your head? Oh no. That's okay. You know what? You're a big boy.
It's okay.
Are you okay?
Are you alright?
This video is a really clear example of something called social referencing,
Yes.
which is a term for when children look to their caregiver's face to understand how to feel and how to react. In this video, the child does not cry because of physical pain, because the child wasn't even hit. The child cries because of the emotional cue that the adult modeled.
What
When the
happened,
parent
buddy?
pretended to hurt the child's head and reacts in
You hit
distress,
your head?
the child immediately checks,
Oh,
is this
no.
situation safe? Am I okay? And how should I respond? And when the
That's
parent
okay. You know
responds
what?
with
You're
fear or
a
alarm,
big boy.
the child interprets the moment
Are you
as
okay?
danger, and their nervous system responds. This shows us something important, that children learn how to feel by watching how we
Oh,
feel.
did that bump your head?
They don't just hear our words, they read our face, our tone,
Did that
our
get your
posture, and
head?
our
Oh
energy.
no.
And this is why co-regulation matters so much. Children do not have the neurological wiring yet to calm themselves independently.
Oh
They
no.
rely on our emotional state to form their emotional state, which means,
What happened,
again,
buddy?
our calm becomes their calm, our fear becomes
You
their
hit your
fear,
head?
our shame becomes their shame,
Oh no.
and our compassion becomes their compassion. Growing up, emotions in my home were something to not be controlled, something that wasn't expressed. If I cried, it was seen as disrespect. If I showed sadness or frustration, it was treated as misbehavior. So I learned very quickly that expressing emotions led to punishment or conflict. And because of that, I learned to hide what I felt. In these pictures, you can see that change. When I was younger, my smile was natural. It was mine. But as I got older, I started to smile to perform, not because I felt okay. I learned to look fine even when I wasn't. Over time, I internalized the belief that emotional expression was weak, inconvenient, or wrong, and because I hid emotions, I also stopped understanding them. As an adult, I've had to relearn how to identify my own emotions and how to give myself permission to feel them and how to regulate them and not suppress them. This is why this topic is so personal to me. Emotional literacy is not automatic. It's either taught or it's suppressed. And the way that we respond to children's emotions today shapes the emotional adults that they will become. When I look back at my childhood, I realized I was experiencing emotions that I simply didn't have the skills or permission to express. And that alone shaped how I understood myself. And this is why I look at children differently now. Children do not need to be told to stop crying or calm down or get over it. They need to be guided through what they're feeling. They need someone to sit with them in that moment and show them how to make sense of it. Emotional literacy grows when adults stay present even when the child is overwhelmed. When adults name the emotions so the child can understand what's happening internally, and when adults model coping strategies instead of demanding emotional control. On this slide, I have different kinds of coping strategies that can help. In the bottom left corner, I have a pictorial schedule, which reduces anxiety by increasing predictability. On top of that is yoga poses or movement to help the body release energy and return to regulation. To the side of the pictorial schedule is a sensory box for grounding and self-soothing. And on top of that are books that describe feelings so children learn the language of emotion. And then all the way to the right is breathing tools that help the body physically come back to calm. As we close, I want to return to the core message of this presentation. Emotional literacy is not automatic. It is something that is taught, modeled, and practiced over time. Children learn how to understand and regulate emotions in relationship through the calm, responsive presence of caregivers, teachers, and therapists. It is not about getting rid of emotions. It is about giving children the tools to navigate those emotions safely. The work we do as adults matter. The way we respond to children's feelings becomes their inner voice. The way we model coping becomes the way that they learn to cope with themselves. And this is the part I want to leave you with. Children view the world through the lens of what they have been taught. If they are taught that emotions are safe, understandable, and not something to hide, they grow into adults who can move through life with confidence, compassion, and resilience. This is why emotional literacy matters. This is why our presence matters. And this is why I am passionate about supporting emotional regulation as a future occupational therapist. Thank you so much for listening. Here are my sources. Thank you.